Frustrated, he thinks he wasn't expecting that. At that moment, the boy asks why Kim came along, and he explains that it was because it was against the rules. So Hyun asks if he was there just as a guard, which the boy confirms. Then Han So-min appears there with an absurd aura, asking what they were doing there. The protagonist asks if Hyun could buy him some time, which the boy confirms, and the girl comments that helping someone who was breaking the rules would also bring punishment to Hyun. In that case, Hyun declares that he would take responsibility. Raising his sword, he comments that he had heard she was trained by the Empress, and asks for a duel. Advancing on the boy with her sword, she says that was fine. The swords collide, and with some difficulty, Hyun reflects, making the girl step back. She imbues her sword with magic, then charges at the boy, their swords clashing against each other. At that moment, Kim extends his hand toward Hyun, deciding to use his skill to amplify his power. With his power increased, Hyun-woo is surprised by the new strength he received. Now strengthened, he manages to fight the committee girl on equal footing. While the fight continues, Kim-ho watches the remaining time on his buff. Back at the machine, he plays again while explaining his strategy. He reveals that this machine has a guaranteed reward system. After a number of tries, after 5 times, we see that the machine kept dropping useless prizes. Holding the last coin, he prepares for the most important play of all. On his 6th try, the machine finally reaches the grand prize. As a result, he ends up receiving a black ice crystal. In the middle of the fight, the girl leaps for a final attack against her opponent. Looking back, Kim calmly watches an attack coming toward him. With the buff almost over, Hyun defends the final attack with difficulty. Having already seen enough, he swallows the crystal he just won. At that moment, a warning appears, alerting him to the freezing effect. Feeling sick, the protagonist brings a hand to his throat. The effect keeps intensifying for a long time. Suddenly he stands up, saying he's fine and leaving everyone confused. Switching to the cabin, he explains that the item is like a magic potion. For beginners, the crystal is a poison that turns the person into ice. But with his resistance, he manages to nullify the effect and absorb all the energy. Hyun asks if the girl was convinced, which she denies. The boy thanks him for the item and also for the chance to fight. Asking to see the technique again, he has his request denied by the boy, who explains that a strong technique would have restrictions. While the girl from earlier was waking up on the train, our protagonist comments that they were arriving. Finally, the train was approaching the island where Dragon Slayer Academy is located. Telling the story, a text explains that the place used to be a lawless land. Then a hero appeared and defeated all the criminals, conquering the dungeons there. After everything, he built a city and founded the famous academy there. Already at the school gates, a student guides the freshmen on which way to go. Walking through the courtyard, a girl warns them not to follow the upperclassmen there. At that moment, a small tiger jumps onto a female student's shoulder, causing a bit of confusion. As they walk, the group is stopped by someone who calls their attention. They see that it was the committee leader, who asked them to follow her. Leading the group, she guides them to the door of the disciplinary committee office. Now alone, he waits seated inside the room of truth to be interrogated. Analyzing the result, the upperclassman says there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Believing the story, he says the item wasn't prohibited after all. In front of him, the committee chief, Oh Se-hoon, explains the rules regarding disobedience. Since no one was hurt, he decides not to apply any penalty this time. After the conversation, the upperclassman notices that his colleague still seems quite dissatisfied. Analyzing the facts, she says the boy's actions still seem very suspicious. After all, he had taken something that would probably kill him without a second thought. Angrily, she suggests using a magnifying glass to investigate the abilities he has. Questioning the idea, the chief asks what they would do if they found nothing. Without an answer, she bows and apologizes for her rash behavior. Advising the girl, he tells her to hurry up and go to the ceremony. At the venue, Kim finds his friends and thanks them for saving him a spot. The third part of the tutorial is completed, and the protagonist thinks he had recovered the money he used on the machine. On stage, a man in casual clothes appears to begin his welcome speech. Seeing him, one of the students comments that he doesn't seem like someone very important. However, the principal is a retired hero with immense power. Commenting on the principal, a student says that was already the 5th rejection. On stage, the principal clears his throat and begins welcoming the freshmen. Explaining the academy's purpose, he says the place trains dragon slayers, and he says the founder insisted on the word slay for a special reason. During the principal's long speech, Kim-ho simply watches the situation attentively. Meanwhile, the speech continues, and some students are moved by his words. Wrapping up his speech, he wishes for everyone to become true heroes at the academy. Kim-ho asks if he didn't find it boring, but his classmate strongly denies it. Next, a teacher goes up on stage to give the students some important notices, warning that freshmen are only allowed to go to the first floor of the dungeon. With a serious look, she asks everyone to study the rules to avoid problems. Ending the ceremony, she tells everyone to return to the dorms without delay. Suddenly, one of the students stands up and calls everyone to go eat. Seeing the injured boy, Hyun-woo asks what happened to his face. Pointing his finger, he warns that tomorrow will be the first day of class. Switching to the dorm, Hyun-woo waves goodbye to his new roommate. Inside his room, he takes off his jacket, deciding he won't just go to sleep. Putting his uniform away in the closet, he prepares for what he will do next. Then Then he sits on the bed and begins to meditate to make the most of his free time. With his hands, he concentrates all his energy to finally form a core. Any ability would depend directly on a power source like that. After absorbing the crystal, he smiles, confident that he would get a good result. Meanwhile, in Hyun's room, he was also meditating so he could concentrate. Remembering the fight, he thought about So-mi, his first truly strong opponent. Without Kim Ho's intervention, he knows he would have lost that confrontation earlier. Ever since they met, he had noticed his friend's posture and confident gaze. Looking at his sword in the corner, he wonders whether he should ask for some help. Giving up on the idea, he chooses not to ask, considering Kim Ho his first friend. Going back to meditating, he smiles and decides he will try to do everything on his own. The next day, the students chat while waiting for class to begin. Yawning, Yeon arrives in the classroom, looking like she had just woken up. With no teacher present, the students begin to wonder who would be in charge of the class. Out of the corner of their eyes, they notice someone approaching, but when they see who it is, they are all shocked by the unexpected appearance. In front of the class, the new teacher introduces himself to the students as Lee Sudok. Pointing at a female student, he asks her to say what people call him. Stammering, she calls him the Human Butcher, leaving Kim Ho surprised by the name. In the Academy's world, there were people who transcended their limits and became villains. Lee Sudok's task was to hunt down and capture all those dangerous villains. He explains that he is there at the principal's request and that he is a professional. He also warns that he would rather kill than see bad grades. Getting straight to the point, he writes on the board and begins explaining the grading system. Talking about the scoring, he reveals that the attitude grade can be negative, warning that he will be watching. He comments that they may meet again after graduation. Continuing the explanation, he details that the exams involve conquering various dungeons. In addition, there are PvP battles, where the evaluation is entirely relative between them. Showing the board, he asks if there are any questions and tells everyone to go to the arena. In the arena, the students were already fighting each other, and the crowd cheered with every blow. That was because they were in a knockout round. Since it was a battle of endurance, the rule says the fight only ends with exhaustion, and with a 5-minute limit, the match could end in a draw or a victory. Curious, Han-woo asks what would happen in the case of a draw, and Kim explains that in that case, the battle would be worth 0 points. Then the system window appears with the mission of getting a good result on the exam. Seeing that, the boy gets the idea of using the exam to analyze the other students, because there were several strong people there. He could mark potential candidates or find abilities worth copying. Then our boy's turn comes and Kim is taken to the arena. Looking ahead, he notices that his opponent was from the Ruby Tower, which specializes in fire magic. Mockingly, the boy smiles, thinking it would be a shame to end that so quickly. To boost her reputation, she thinks she needs to defeat a renowned opponent, but she didn't know that boy. At that moment, she notices that his weapon is a very weak and simple staff. Because of that, she deduces that he must be an earth mage focused on defense. After the countdown, the fight begins, and she prepares her first attack. Without wasting any time, she decides to end it all using her combustion ability. The audience is impressed by the display of power. However, the result of the attack leaves the girl completely shocked by the scene. Because to the girl's surprise, the scoreboard showed that Kim had completely withstood her attack. As the smoke faded away, our protagonist appeared. Staring at each other, the scoreboard shows that both of them still have their health intact. Worried, the girl wonders if Kim had used something to resist her magic. Casting another spell, she decides that in this case she would use something different. Our boy looks down, noticing a magic circle beneath his feet. Because of his confidence, the girl from Ruby Tower cannot understand her opponent's attitude, and wonders why Kim is standing still. The girl then grits her teeth, saying that in that case they would see if he could withstand that. On the other hand, the boy merely stares at her. Then a pillar of fire appears on the spot. Some people commented that it was to be expected from someone from Ruby Tower. After the attack, the girl is exhausted. When the smoke clears, she can see that the boy is still unharmed. Then casting a lightning spell, which quickly heads toward the girl who is in shock. She barely manages to dodge. However, the bird changes course, hitting her. As the girl falls to the ground, the paralysis effect is applied, and Kim comments that the battle had come to an end. He also advises her to save her techniques for the next rounds. Still paralyzed, she can only grumble. Seeing the girl on the ground, the audience is shocked by such an unexpected defeat. Noticing the attention, he realizes he ended up drawing more attention than expected. Without even getting a break, he is called again for the next fight. In the audience, the students are surprised to see that his opponent is Song Chun-hai. Putting on her gloves, she says he is lucky to be fighting her now. The two stare at each other for a moment until the young man gives up, surprising the girl. This even catches the instructor off guard, and he asks why. At that, the boy explains that he was still tired. Even so, the professor comments that it would be better if he stayed. However, he asks if Kim is sure, which the boy confirms. While hearing this, the girl clenched her fists, then commenting that he was pathetic, and saying that her grandfather always said that those who endure discomfort can reach the top. Kim then remembers that the girl's grandfather was the famous Lord of Thunder. Reflecting on the advice, he says it does not apply to his own case. With disdain, he leaves the place, telling her to consider that a victory. Turning her back, the girl comments that she regretted expecting anything from him. Remembering something, our protagonist calls out to the girl, and while being teleported, reminds her that she owed him a coupon. Hearing that, the girl gritted her teeth. Being called to fight, she finds her opponent, a boy from Topaz Tower. Seeing the aura around the girl, the boy is startled, and as soon as the fight begins, the